Hey folks, Aaron Heiser with Maker's Leather Supply, and we have to do a little prequel to this video. I forgot to do it at the beginning of the video, so we're going to add it. Anyway, if you received the tooling pattern for this project initially, like the one in the mystery box, I screwed up, and I'm sorry. And I've made the announcement on Facebook since, trying to correct it. The tooling pattern is wrong, okay? Because the wallet goes this way. Tooling pattern goes this way. What do I mean by that? Tooling pattern should be like this. Okay? I am so sorry. I have corrected the tooling pattern, and we have it on our website, makersleathersupply.com, under the free pattern section. You can go on there, you can download it for free, and I'm sorry. If you already tooled this just like this, hang on to it. Do not throw it out. I am going to invent us a wallet that we can still use it with, because I'm pretty proud of my tooling. Anyway, sorry about that. Now, here's the rest of the video. Alright, good morning everybody. I'm Aaron Heiser of Maker's Leather Supply, and in today's video, we're going to build what is called the Whatever Wallet. Okay, here it is. Inside of it, lots of card pockets on each side, a zippered pouch for whatever, and then you've got these two areas right here that you could also stuff things into. Okay? Why is it called the Whatever Wallet? Well, I wanted to make a wallet that was different than the Roper, had a little bit more, you know, like the zippered area in it and things like that. I wanted it to be a long wallet that could fit in your pocket or into a purse. I didn't necessarily want it to be masculine or feminine design, and I think that I achieved that, but when it came time to name it, Janie Sue and I were talking about possible names for it, and she was like, just call it whatever. I don't think that's quite what she meant, but the Whatever Wallet was born. Alright, this was the subject of last month's mystery box. This and then another bonus template was included, as well as all the clicked out pieces for this wallet. Okay. Now, since those pieces were already clipped out, I'm going to explain to those folks, as well as everybody else watching, that how the template will work. Okay. So the template is of 4 pieces. Alrighty. So the outside is this right here, the whole thing. Okay, that is the back of the wallet. I'm going to be making mine out of dark brown English bridle. Okay, you can cut it out of 4 to 5, 5 to 6, even 6, 7 if you're a heavy-handed tooler. Okay, and then the liner for the outside is this thing right here. And what you would do is you cut out the outside of this again, 2 to 3 ounce. And then you can mark or punch these holes right here, and then you just cut to connect the dots. Okay? And so what that does is that that creates this opening right here. Okay? And it's hard to see on this one because I actually lined the opening piece, just kind of experimenting. You can see where the edge of my liner is. I won't do that anymore. I don't like lining just that center part. It creates a little bit of a bubble right here when the wallet's closed. So anyway, so when you're done cutting it out, you're looking at a piece like this. Ultimately, will go like that on the inside of this bridle here. Okay. Next piece. This is the zippered pocket. Just like a lot of zippered pockets we've done. We sew the zipper into here, fold it in half, and then it on the wallet is right here. Okay. We've got some card pockets. Okay. This is the T-pocket design, which means that each pocket is its own leather layer, as opposed to the wallets that we've done where we put the tie back and the tape and stuff like that. So on one side of it, they're stacked like this. And you've got, that creates 4 pockets. And then on the other side, the zippered side, you just have 2 more pockets, like that right there. Okay, so that is all the pieces to this wallet right here. But now what we're going to do is we're going to build this one together. Okay, so without further ado, since all my pieces are already cut out, we're just going to go straight to construction. So I'm going to go ahead and move all my template pieces. This template will be available on the website as soon as this video is posted. It's a great template. It's a great wallet. Everybody that's come into the store and seen it just absolutely loves it. I do want to explain this. See my gorilla guy right there? Okay, that is not my tooling. That is a stamp by that guy Sergey Negromsky, something like that. He's that Romanian tool maker that makes all the really cool brass stamps. Anyway, this is an embossing plate from him. You can actually see it's actually pretty deep. I even put a plug behind it. If you catch the light with it, you can tell that thing is super duper deep. But when I posted pictures of that on my Facebook, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, you're tooling, blah blah blah." And yeah, I can tool pretty good, but that is an embossed plate. I don't want to take credit for tooling this really cool gorilla. Okay. All right. Now, the very first thing I need to do is I need to skive my T-pocket. All right, and the reason I'm doing that first is if I screw up and I accidentally cut it, then I have enough time to cut me out another one. I am going to hand skive it because, well, it's a skill that I don't practice enough because I have all these fancy machines, and so I need to practice hand skiving some. But I'm going to take my camera here, push it down to my desk. Make sure that I cover up that. I was told there has to be a light behind me to get a good 3D, but then there's the reflection of that light behind me, so I'm going to try really hard to block that reflection, and that way we don't have to see it in the desk all the time. Alright, so this is one of our Japanese style skiving knives, okay, and yeah, I haven't used one in a long time, and I really hope that I don't screw this up too bad. But here is how these things are used best, is I'm just going to slide it along that line, and I'm going to do it in a couple of swoops. All right, I'm not going to do it all at once because I'm guaranteed to screw it up if I try. And I just slide it along and it skives just like that. Okay, if you keep this knife really sharp, then it'll work great. Okay. Looks like I did pretty good. I can only see a tiny bit of the surface of my leather here that I kind of over-skived, but that's more than fine. What I need to do is just skive just that very bottom edge of the T-pocket, and then maybe a little bit right here as well, and that'll be it. And since this is such a short skive, I'm just gonna kind of push it along like that. And again, as long as you keep this knife just stupid sharp, it'll do these kind of things. If you don't, well, it won't. I always, for years, was like, I don't sharpen knives very well. That's one of the reasons I love scalpels. But I have had to learn over the years, because if you're going to have good tools, you should have the ability to maintain them. And so there you go. So anyway, we do have these on our website. They are currently in stock. Sometimes they go out of stock for long periods of time when we have a hard time getting them. Great little knives. Okay, now, the next thing I need to do is I need to take my zippered area here, and I'm going to take, this is a 9-inch, what's called a dress zipper, and I haven't figured out if that's because it's more for dressy clothes, because it's, you know, kind of a smaller, finer zipper, or if these are used somehow in lots of dressmaking. Either way, it is called a dress zipper. This one is 9 inches. I only need about 7 inches of it though, as you can see here. Okay, so all I'm going to do is, like we've done before, I'm going to sew it into here, and then I'm just going to clip off the unneeded portion. Alrighty. So yeah. So what I'm going to do is grab some double-sided tape. I've said it a million times, for this practical use, I don't know. For this use, I am going to use this tape, which is an 1/8 of an inch wide. I cannot get this into my store. I have tried, but Tandy sells it, and it is good tape. And I love using it on these small zippers, because if I use my 1/4 of an inch wide, which is the smallest that I sell, right there, twice as wide, then I will either have tape sticking out from under the zipper on this side, or where you can see it on the outside of this. Either way, that's bad. If it's on the inside, then it can stick the the pocket closed. If it's on the top side, then you see it and it looks like crap, and we don't produce things that look like crap, do we? All right, so 1/8 of an inch tape. I'm just going to take it and run it right up almost to the edge there. I need to go find my scissors. They've been missing for 2 or 3 videos now. I'm going to go find them right now. I'll be right back. Alrighty. They were over across the room on Janie Sue's desk. Now, I'm not going to blame her because she's not the only one that uses that desk. Her daughter also uses it. So, somewhere in that bloodline, though, my scissors came up missing. Alright. So a couple of quick pieces of tape across here, and then I'm going to lay my zipper on there, and then we're going to sew it. I'm going to hand sew this entire wallet. One, I enjoy hand sewing when I have the time to do it. Two, you know, I've said it a lot of times, I try to hand sew a lot of projects in our videos because I don't want people to think that they need to have a sewing machine to do the things that we do. Okay? Yes, a sewing machine is convenient. Yes, it's fast. Yes, it can make very nice stitches. So can hand stitching, of course, if you're doing it well. But I understand that it's not in every craftsman's budget, or even sometimes the folks just don't want one, and that's fine too. But yeah, so hand stitching it is. All right. Took the back off the tape, and I'm just going to take where the zipper ends here, and I'm going to put it right up here at the very end of that opening. Okay, and of course I'm working on the back side of the leather here. I'm not on the front side. And then I'm just going to lightly press it down to the tape, and I'm doing it lightly because I'm going to turn this over and make sure that it's nice and centered. Okay, I want my zipper tape, or my zipper tracks, to be right in the middle. I don't want them to be to the left or to the right, but in the middle. And if it wavers back and forth, then it just won't look good at all once it's all sewn together. Okay? Alright, so we're going to hand sew this, and I'm going to do something a little different than I normally do. Okay? One of the things I found is when you're sewing super thin stuff, then of course it's better to use a thinner or smaller thread. Okay? With smaller thread usually comes more stitches per inch. So I'm trying to decide if I'm going to use more stitches per inch or not. Normally I use 8 stitches per inch. Okay, but I'm thinking about using 10 stitches per inch. Okay, 10, 8. A lot of difference in those two. Anyway, but what I'm going to use is this .020 waxed cord. If you use millimeter sizes, then you're looking at it's pretty close to 0.5 or 0.6 millimeter thread. Okay, and then for the rest of the wallet, where there's thicker pieces sewn together, I'm going to use my standard, which is the .030, which equates to about 0.08 millimeter thread. Or sorry, not 0.08, but just 0.8 millimeter thread. Okay, that's always been my standard, 8 millimeter thread, 8 stitches per inch. But I've noticed when I use that on this area right here, where it's just a very thin piece of leather, a very thin piece of fabric, the thread looks kind of overbearing. So I'm going to experiment in this video, and I'm going to use the .020, which is the equivalent to 0.5, 0.6 millimeter. Anyway, and you know what though, I think instead of using the 10 stitches per inch though, I'm just going to stick with my standard 8 stitches per inch. We'll see at the end of this video if that was a mistake or not. Okay. The reason I've decided not to is because I will have I'll have card pockets sewn to this where you'll see other measurements of stitches per inch, and I don't where you'll see that I've used the number 8. And anyway, I just don't want to have both of them right next to each other where you can see the difference. It seems weird to me. So I'm just using a pair of wing dividers here, marking me out a stitch line. Okay, on this thin stuff, I'm not going to do a stitch gouge. I might on other areas of this wallet if I think about it. I don't always do it. Sometimes I do. But yeah. All right. Very light line, about 1/8 of an inch or so away from the area. It's actually so light that it's really hard to see. Now I'm going to start going around with my pricking iron here. The pricking irons we saw are kind of a hybrid pricking iron. Okay, like I've said a million times, I use them all the way through the leather when I'm doing anything, say 6 ounces or less, maybe even 8 ounces or less. But technically, with pricking irons, you're just supposed to kind of mark your leather and then go back with an awl to produce your holes. Not my style. I just haven't ever gotten that deep into the hand sewing. I get tons of compliments from other leather workers on the hand sewing I do, so I feel like it's probably okay. Alright, so I'm going to pause the camera while I go all the way around this thing, and just so you know, I don't have any sorcery here to go around the corners. I have an 8 stitches per inch with just 2 prongs on it is what I'll go around the corners with. Okay, so yeah, I'm not trying to trick you, I'm just trying to save you video time. Alrighty, got all those holes poked, there they are. Okay. On the back side, you can barely see them because the fabric, of course, of the zipper, but they are within the zipper tape, and that's, of course, good. Now, again, I'm going to use this 0.020 thread, okay, and what it is, 0.020 is the standard American inches. I don't even know if I've used main threads thread this size yet. I've used plenty of their thread, of course, but I don't know that I've used this. So anyway, I'm not going to bore you with a class on the stitching part of it. I know that in lots of my videos I've shown how I do my saddle stitching, but I'm just going to start at any place that's not the end, and I'm going to go all the way around and stitch her up right quick. Alright folks, so got that all sewn in. Move my stitching clamp over so I can get back in front of the TV. Alright, so there's what we're looking at right there. Okay? So that is sewn in. All I'm going to do now is I'm going to clip the ends of this zipper off so that they're not going to be in my stitch line when I fold this in half to sew it again. Okay? There we go. I'll discard that little piece of zipper. It is not needed. Alright, next I need to take and build the pockets on one side of this. Okay? So T-pockets are a little bit different than the Tyvek pockets that we normally do. Okay? They are not difficult. I'm sorry, and I'm totally mixed up here. We're not doing the T-pockets on this one. We're just doing the one pocket. Okay, so the one pocket will go on here, and we're just going to glue down 3 sides of it right here. Sorry, let me get you back on camera. I'm so sorry. Alright, so we're going to glue this pocket onto this, and we're just going to glue 3 sides, of course, because we want it to be open for cards, and then we're going to stitch just right up that center right there to separate 2 cards. Okay. You can burnish this edge right here if you like. It'll have a much nicer, more professional look to it. And then the other thing you want to think about is, and this was the prototype, so of course it's never completely right, but you want to think about this zipper right here. okay? I want it to where if this wallet is in my pocket like this, I want that zipper to be in the up position when it's closed. That way if let's say I failed to zip it all the way and I left it that much open. Well, if it's in the down position, any small things, coins, whatever that are in that, now can find their way out. But if that's on the upside of the wallet and it's just a little bit open, chances are everything fell down using the law of gravity and it's still going to be securely sealed inside there. So when I put my cards or my card pocket on here, I want to pay attention to that, okay? So, and then of course it doesn't matter really if this is on the right or the left side of the wallet. This leather happens to have more fat rolls on this side than on this side. So what I'm going to do is cause those fat rolls to be on the back. I'm going to sew the pockets on here, and then this will be like this. This will be the top of the wallet, okay? So yeah, there we go. We don't need to sew that down or glue that down right this second, but we're going to because we already talked about it, and if I don't, then I'm going to end up talking about it again, and I know you folks love when I overtalk and overtalk and overtalk. So, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set it up there like it ought to be, and I'm going to very carefully with my fingernail just mark this piece, the big piece. I'm going to mark it just right above that pocket. And then that is going to help me to know where my glue needs to stop, okay? So just these teeny tiny little fingernail marks. I don't even know if you could see them if I showed them to you, but I'm still going to try. I don't see it on the camera, but anyway, it's right there. Tiny little fingernail mark, okay? So, I'm going to take my contact cement. I'm going to run a little bead of it, about a 1/8 of an inch or so wide, around those three sides of that and these three sides of this. Okay. I guess I can do this a little bit more on camera than I am. And I want to make sure that that glue goes right up to the edge, and even if it slops over the edge just a tiny bit, that's okay, because when we sand this wallet's edges, we'll get rid of all that. Then I'm going to put the exact same little strips of glue on the back of this. For all intents and purposes, folks, I use the word glue a lot, but I'm talking about contact cement. And how contact cement works best is you apply it to both sides of what you're going to stick together. You let them set for a couple of minutes till it kind of feels dry, and then you stick them together. And they stick good. Let that sit there for a second while I wipe that off my cutting board surface here. Alright, for our intentions and purposes, this is going to be dry enough. Generally, I'd let these sit for a few minutes, but, you know, I get impatient. I bet I'm not the only one. So I'm going to carefully place this corner nice and straight, and then I'm going to just run it down and tack it down. I'll bring it over to this corner, make sure it's good and lined up, tack it down. There it should be. Okay? Now since we've gone ahead and done that, we can go ahead and we'll stitch up this very center part here. Okay? Use my centering ruler, and I'm going to find me a scratch-awl. This isn't my scratch-awl, but it is a lacing fid. It'll do what I need it to do until I find my scratch hole. So what I'm going to do is find the center right to left on this thing. Okay. Pretty easy with a centering ruler. And just make a little mark right there. And I'm going to move up here and I'm going to do the exact same thing just above the top of the card pockets, or pocket, like that. And then I'm just going to draw a line from one to the other. There's what we're looking at. Okay. Now I'm going to use my 8 stitches per inch pricking iron again. I'm going to put the first prong of the fork above this base, this pocket piece. Okay. I'm only going to have it go through that top piece there. And I'm going to give it a whack as soon as I find them all. Okay, 2 whacks. Alright. I'm going to move it down. And I'm going to stop about 1/4 of an inch from the base down here. Let me turn it sideways. 1/4 of an inch from where my finger is at the base here. Because I don't need to go all the way to that stitch line. Okay? But there'll be another stitch line that runs right across there, and unless you plan on putting those 2 stitch lines lining up exactly, then just stop a little bit short of it and it'll be great. Now I'm going to put this back in my stitching clamp here, and I'm going to use my .030, which is 0.8 millimeter thread, and I'm just going to stitch that up right quick. Okay. Since this is a little bit thicker, we're going to go ahead and move to the thicker thread, and this is the only we're done with that other thread. We're not going to use it again on this project. Okay, so I'm going to pause this. When I come back, we'll have stitched that line up. Alrighty, so there that one went. Stitched on there all good and clean. Next thing I need to do is fold this in half and glue it shut, and then I am done with this side of the wallet. Okay? Real simple. I did unzip it about halfway. I want that zipper, that forces the zipper to be wider right there. So if I leave it up here at the end, I can, it can be difficult to pinch that closed and glued. Okay. So I just unzip it halfway, and I'll leave that thing halfway unzipped for the remainder of the build, because we'll have that same issue when we go to put all the pieces together. Okay. Now, getting out my trusted contact cement again. And I'm just going to go all the way around all 4 sides of this little project here. And then after a couple of minutes, I will fold it in half, and it will be stuck that way forever. And then here later on, it'll be sewn into the wallet, and that will be its final resting place. Okay. So I put glue on all 4 sides of it. I'm just going to set it aside for a few minutes as I move on to the next step, and then I'll come back and fold it in half here in a moment. Okay? So, next up is going to be these T-card, T-slot pockets that I tried to fast forward to a while ago, and I was wrong. Don't tell Janie. She doesn't think I'm ever wrong. She walked in a minute ago. Alright, so the T-card pockets are going to go just like this. Okay, the one that's shaped like a T-ish is on the bottom. The one that is shaped just like the one we already did is on the top. And you just butt one up directly underneath the other like so. Okay, now The problem is though, the bottom one, the T-shaped one, I have to sew the bottoms of it down to what I'm going to put it on so that the cards don't slide, all the way down. I mean, there's a reason we have layers here, right? So, sorry, Myra found her squeak toy, as you can hear. So what we do is we take our piece that these are going to go onto here. Take our piece that these are going to go onto. I put the bottom one where it belongs, right there along the very edge. Okay? And I just kind of hold on to it on the edges here. Then I slide the top one behind it. And this is where I find my spacing for how it needs to be so that they line up really well with each other. Okay? Some people do just make these little T's a little bit bigger and skive them down on the back, and then they put it under the next layer. I like to bump them up against each other, just because I've risked, if I put it under the next layer, then I risk not having the pocket even all the way across the top. If they're bumped down on top of each other, I know that they're the same height on the right as the left. Okay, so I've got it exactly where I want it. I'm going to remove this one, and I'm going to take my awl, spin this thing 90 degrees so we can see. Now I better just spin the entire project, or the cutting surface, that way I don't accidentally move this. And I'm going to take the back. Okay, I'm not cutting anything. I'm using the back of the scalpel to make a very sharp line right at the bottom of that leather. Very light line. I'm not trying to cut it at any way, shape, or form. There we go. A very, very light line because I want to glue that. Okay? I have to remove it to put the glue on it. So, a little bit of glue here, a little bit of glue there. Honestly, for this seam, you could use that 1/8 of an inch wide tape, and that would be just fine too. I don't like to use the tape on lines that are going to be sewn and then burnished, because the tape is actually thick enough that it'll create a gap between your layers. Or if you get it all the way out to the edge, then you're going to have like a shiny substance sticking out between your layers. Either case, I don't like it. So there we go. Very light. I mean, this doesn't really need to hold anything other than long enough to sew it. Okay. I'm going to slide this thing to the side. I'm going to bring back this one that I have to fold in half here, and it's ready to go. And I'm going to just line up the corners. Do not press anything together until you're ready to have it permanently there. So line up the corners, and then I'm going to press it all together. All right, there should be. This will be ready for putting into the final wallet here in a few minutes. Okay, we'll come back to this. Since I did such a light coating of glue, it's ready to go too. And I'm just going to line up that little line that I scribed on there with this, but I also want to make sure that my T-pockets come all the way out to the edges to make sure it's centered right to left, or top to bottom, whichever way you're looking at it here. There we go. And I'll press that down. Now I'm going to cheat. To sew this together, I can do anything. I mean, I could even just whip stitch it real quick and call it done. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a much larger freaking iron, my 6 stitches per inch. That'll save me a couple of stitches. And I'm going to run along here, knocking it through. And I am going to use the thinnest thread again. I lied a while ago when I said we were done with it. Since it's in between the layers, I'll use the thinnest thread I can find so that it doesn't kind of create an impression on the outside of the pocket that's covering it up. Okay, I don't even need to scribe me an actual stitch line because I know that I'm just putting it right along this bottom edge. Doesn't have to be 100% straight, just has to be. So there we go. Okay, Now I'm going to pause the camera. I'm going to go ahead and stitch that up right quick, and when I come back we'll place the other pocket on top of it, and we're going to start final assembly of, well, we have to sew down the middles, but then we're going to start final assembly of this wallet. It's a very easy and fast build, even though it's kind of a complicated design as far as everything that's put into it. Alrighty, so got that sewn up. Okay, it should be right there. And now we're going to take this other card pocket and we're going to set it right on top of that one. Okay, and we're going to glue it all together. So once again, I'm just going to make little fingernail marks underneath this pocket. And then what I'm going to do is put some glue underneath this tab right here, and then underneath this tab right here, all the way around these three sides, and then all the way around these three sides. And then just to save going back and forth to the video, once that's glued together, I am then going to have it all nice and squared up, and I'm going to once again do a center line of sewing right here between the pockets. Excuse me, just like we did on this one right here. Okay, so when I come back, all that'll be done, and we're going to go to our final assembly steps. All right, so got that all sewn up and everything. There should be right there. Okay, now we are ready to take the outside of the wallet and apply the insides of the wallet and sew it all together. Super simple. We glue this, well, first we'll glue this to this, then we'll glue this to this, then we'll stitch all the way around all of it, and boom, wallet's done, minus, you know, edging and trimming and things like that. Okay, so first though, I wanted to show you, again, this is just a piece of English bridle I had set in here. It's a dark brown. We started carrying some tools from Mask on Leather and ZB Tools, and these are called bump jigs. And when I first looked at them, I was like, all right, but they're actually pretty dadgum useful. One of the main uses I've found for them is, let's say I'm doing, let's say I'm building a normal bifold wallet that has the holes knocked in it and then the slots cut out of it and stuff, you know. A lot of the time I just mark those holes and punch them out without the template on it, and then when I put the template back, you know, you got to line up the leather with the template and everything so you can cut your slots and trim off whatever. So anyway, these are actually really cool for stuff like that. You can take and bump these up against the corner here, and then let's say this was that template, and we bump it up against the corner, and there you go, flat, square, where it's supposed to be. Okay, but the reason I bring all this up is because actually I'm going to use them for a different purpose right now, and this is one of the things that really sold me on these. So this one is obviously on the outside edge of this piece of leather, okay? And then this one is going to be just on the inside of it. It's about 3/8 of an inch wide, I guess. I haven't measured it officially, but it's definitely well within my stitch line, okay? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my maker's mark and set it just inside there. And now that maker's mark is perfectly square with the corner, and it's the same distance from the bottom edge as it is from the side edge, and it's going to look great. So I do need to make sure, since my maker's mark is oval and rounded shape though, I do still need to make sure that it's perfectly straight up and down. But I'm going to go ahead and move those out of the way. And there it is, just where I'd want it. Okay, now I am going to put it back on there and do it a little bit harder to get more impression, but that is an extremely useful tool. If it didn't work for anything else, that would be my most favoriteest thing about these right here. So now you know, and knowing is half the battle.
Yeah, I do.
Janie came back in. So now we are going to glue this together Okay, and again, it doesn't matter what's on the right, what's on the left. It doesn't. It's an ambidextrous, but now that we have decided which end is up on this zipper, I want it up on this wallet. So this is the way this wallet's going to end up. Okay, so my maker's mark is here, so the wallet's facing up that way. So what I have to do now is glue the wallet, the back side of it to this, and then glue this to this. All right, now to do that, again, I'm going to unzip that about halfway. But to do that, I'm not going to just glue this whole panel down, because if I did that, even though it would work great and it would have nice rigidity and everything, this can be a pocket right here if you don't glue it down. Okay, so why not have an extra pocket? I mean, that's where your money's going to be, right? So I'm just going to once again glue around the edges, and around the edges here. I'll stick it down, and then I'll do my same trick with my fingernails, marking where that's going to stick, and gluing that onto there by only 3 sides, because again, another pocket. Okay, let's hop to it. All right. Get that glue all the way up to the edge, because it'll create nicer burnished edges on this wallet too. Because properly glued edges, I mean, turn 2 pieces of leather into 1 basically when it comes time to burnish. You don't even see the seam if you do it really well. Again, my glue line is about 1/4 of an inch wide here, I guess. It's not too excessive, but I do want plenty of it. Alrighty, so I'm going to let that glue set up for a second while I clean off of the excess that I got all over my table, because I'm too lazy to put a piece of paper down. And in just a minute we'll come back, stick those together, and glue the next piece on, and we'll be getting on it. Alright, so we're going to stick these 2 pieces together. Once again, I've got to be cognizant about which way I was going to do this because of the zipper being where it is. Okay, and I'm going to line up my corners, put this on here. I like to do this side first because it's all nice and rigid since it's got pockets and stuff on it. Okay, and then we'll move over and do the other side. Alright, now, once again, I'm going to glue this to that, just like so. Okay, I'm going to just mark it directly just underneath the edge of it there, so I'll know where to stop putting my glue. Here we go. Just because I'm tired of scraping off my desk. I've got an old envelope here. right. I'll stick those two pieces together. Yep, okay. I was just making, I had it upside down to me, and I was like, wait a minute, why is the zipper facing the wrong way? But it was just rotated on my desk. And there we go. She lays nice and flat. Okay, now I'm going to go through, draw me a stitch line. It's going to be generous. It's going to be a little bit wider than the previous ones we've been doing. Okay. We're going to call that about 3/16 of an inch. And then I'm going to poke all those holes all the way around with my 8 stitches per inch pricking iron. I'm going to stitch it all up, and when I come back, we'll talk about doing some edge work. On a lot of videos I say, okay, and then, you know, finish up your edges and blah, 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 and then that's the end of the video. But I have had some comments of people saying, well, how do you finish your edges? And I realized that it's probably been a year or two since I did it on camera, so we will. All right, so again, I'm just going to go around here with my pricking irons all the way through, all the way around, and stitch that up. And when I come back, we'll do some edge work. All right, folks, here we are. She's all sewn up. I got a lot of excess wax. Some of the main thread has a lot of wax to it, and that's not really an issue. All I have to do is I'll just take I've got a horsehair brush that I'll use and just kind of brush over the stitches, and it'll clean them up real nice. One of the things you can do if you have such a tool is use like an overstitch wheel that corresponds to the number of stitches per inch you've used. This is an old Gomp Hackbarth tool right here, but it's an 8 stitches per inch wheel, and an overstitch wheel looks like a little spur there on the end of it. Okay, but what it can do is run along these stitches, and it kind of pokes the leather down in the in between the stitches, and it can kind of straighten them up, clean them up, whatever. But it does a good job of just kind of tidying them up a little bit. I don't always do this, but I do like to show it to folks, you know, especially people with a sewing machine. A lot of the time the back of your stitch doesn't look near as clean and nice as the front of your stitch, and if you can find one of these that has a corresponding wheel to your stitch length, it'll definitely give it a nice look to run over it with that. Okay. Now, as I said earlier, I'm going to actually go over my edging process with you here. What I have is my Cobra edge burnisher over here, and I'm going to be very honest, I'm a terrible salesman when it comes to these edge burnishers, because though I love this machine, I don't really use the burnishing part of it. I use the sanding part all the time, but the burnishing part, I prefer to hand burnish my edges. That being said, I have used it many times when I had just tons of stuff to burnish, or lots of belts, or, you know, stuff like that. But for my onesie twosie, making a wallet, making this or that, it's more than fine that I hand burnish. Okay, so what I'm doing is, if you look down the edge of this thing, all those lines of course don't line up perfectly. So what we're going to do is we're going to sand them until that's just one flat edge, and then we'll edge it with an edge cutting tool, and then we'll burnish it, and it's going to look amazing. Okay, so I'm trying to decide if I want to take the camera to the machine or bring the machine in front of the camera. Give me a second, I'm going to see if I can bring the machine over here. Alright, brought the machine over here. Now, the really cool thing about the Cobra burnisher is it's variable speed, and there's a switch back here you can reverse the motor, because sometimes when you're sanding, if you get into a certain angle or whatever, it'll start to chatter on you, and I mean, it could even grab that thing and just yank it out of your hands. Ask me how I know. And so anyway, it's really nice to have that reverse feature. But Again, all we're going to do is sand this. I've got the speed turned all the way down. If you turn it up, it gets real fast. And fast to the point that it actually will, I mean, it'll sand it, but it'll kind of burn the edges of the leather too. So I just turn it all the way down for sanding. And then if I am using it to burnish, I usually turn it all the way back up to burnish it. Okay? And I'm just trying to keep this thing perfectly 90 degrees to the sanding surface as I go back and forth and try to get all those edges to line up. This is kind of a finer grit sandpaper I have on here, so it's going to go a little bit slower than if I'd had one of the more coarse grit ones. But I do this with all of my projects. If I'm going to burnish the edges, I sand them first and get them nice and even, okay? This edge right here is really messed up, or really not straight, I guess you could say. So I'm going to take a scalpel first, and I'm just going to give myself a head start by pre-cutting part of it that I can tell is just jacked. I know I'm a little off camera, and I apologize. But this will save us 10 minutes of watching me sand if I pre-cut this piece right here off. And some people will sew their entire project together and then just trim the whole thing with a knife. And man, that works way faster than sanding. It's just never been the way I do it. So, right or wrong, it works. I'm a big advocate. Anybody that watches my stuff knows I'm a big advocate for, if it works for you, then it's the right way. I don't tell anybody that their method is wrong as long as they're getting good results. If they're not getting good results, then well, maybe they are doing something a little wrong. Or maybe they just need to tweak how they're doing it. But burnishing edges and casing leather for tooling, those are two things that people really widely vary on how they do it, and a lot of the time they disagree pretty heavily on how they do it, you know. And again, I'm not going to say anybody's right or wrong, because if it works for you, then it works. That being said, if you aren't doing it my way, you're wrong. Alright, now when we look down that edge, we got a nice, flat, straight edge on all four sides. I'm going to reach back here and turn this thing off before I get my butt stuck to it. And, you know, not that I couldn't stand to sand off a little bit of butt probably, but, you know, whatever. Okay. Now I'm going to grab me an edger, and we're going to cut down those edges a little bit and give them a little bit of degree or an angle to them. I'm going to use Ron's Montana edger number 3, maybe. Okay, the Montana edgers are generally used for thinner surfaces, thinner thicknesses of leather. So, all right. So yeah, number 3, let's see how much it takes off. I'm not really wanting to take a ton off, just enough to not have a corner there, because when you burnish it, that corner tends to fold over and then it just looks terrible. Now you do want to be careful, and you get real light-handed. You can see where the wallet's thinner, right there in the center. This is where the fold is, of course. Okay, and when you go across that with an edger, if you're pushing really hard, then when you get, especially where it goes thick again, you're going to gouge the heck out of that leather right there. So you get real light-handed as you go across that, and you won't have that issue. Okay? That being said, if you've got to get all heavy-handed with your edger, it's time to sharpen it or hone it up a little bit. And I've been thinking about doing a couple of videos on that exact subject to help people keep their tools, in tip-top condition. Okay, so there we go. There's all of those. Now I flip it over and do the insides. So there it is. All the edges are have been. I used the edge cutter on all the edges. One of the terms you hear with that is beveling, edge beveling, and it is a good term for it. Don't get me wrong, but if you don't use the word edge when you say beveling, then people also can think that you're talking about tooling. So I try to keep my terminology separate there. Okay. All right. Now we have choices. Okay. We love choices. And one of the choices we can use is the Ron's Edge Rub. Okay, this magical concoction right here. People have been using Tokenol here lately quite a bit to do their edges. That stuff's amazing. Don't get me wrong. I would love to carry it in the store. I just haven't started yet. But I do really like Tokenol. I recently purchased a can of Tandy's Tokenol type stuff. It's not name brand Tokenol, it's their play on it. It's pretty decent stuff. I only used it on 2 different things. They were both veg tans, so I can't tell you how it does on lots of other different things. But it is pretty decent stuff on the veg tan pieces I used it on. I need to find my piece of canvas that I have to burnish these edges with. I know there's one up in this cabinet here. But I like to use Ron's Edge Rub and canvas. That's my favorite thing to use. There's my big piece right there. Dogs had it. Silly pups. Alright, so when I use Ron's Edge Rub, I only do one side at a time. Okay, and this is one of those products that less is more. If you just soak the edges with this stuff, it's not going to work as well as if you just kind of had a nice little run of it across there. Okay. Alright, and then after that it's time for the elbow grease. I'm going to turn this right side out because, again, if the dog's got a hold of it, then it's probably nasty. And then just going to burnish. And after a minute I'll move it to a different part of the canvas, burnish some more. Okay, and if I've got spots that don't look like they're as burnished, then maybe I didn't get enough of the Ron's on them. Again, I'm very sparing with this stuff because I don't want to get too much on it. Okay? But after a few minutes, the whole dang thing will look like glass. Now, a lot of the time, I'll dye these edges before I burnish them, and I'll just use like a dark brown dye or something like that. And when you burnish them, it'll get super duper dark. But sometimes when I'm using natural veg tan and a color, I kind of like the layers that you see. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But this second side here, but what I'm going to do is pause the camera so that you don't have to watch me do all the whole dadgum thing. So, be right back. Alright folks, here it is. All the edges are pretty and shiny. Okay, they're very smooth. I'm going to go ahead and zip that sucker closed. We'll fold it over, give it a little bit of a crease. A lot of the time I'll even maybe put a book on it overnight or something to, give it its fold. But yeah, there it is, folks. This is the Whatever wallet. Template available at makersleathersupply.com. Me personally, I like a wallet that fits all the way down in my pocket, but this would be an awesome truck wallet for me, and that's probably what this one's going to become. People ask me all the time, what's a truck wallet? Well, it's a wallet that you leave in your truck that has all that crap in it that you don't necessarily need to carry, but you don't want to lose. So, like my Blockbuster card would go in here. So anyway, hope you've learned something. Hope you've been able to follow along, and I explained it well enough and everything. But again, I'm Aaron Heiser of Maker's Leather Supply, and keep on working at it, folks. We hope you have a great day, and we'll have another video for you soon. Have a good one.